On Tuesday, Del Norte County's Board of Supervisors formally accepted the resignation of appointed County Sheriff Randy Waltz. Former Sheriff Randy Waltz leaves his position under a cloud after being charged with felony voter fraud. Chair of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors, Jerry Hemmingson.
Item number 21 is a couple of things here. Accept the resignation of Randy Waltz effective March 14th, 2022, and discuss and give direction to staff related to the process of appointing someone to fill the current county sheriff vacancy. I have motions and a second.
Can we clarify, was that Chair or Supervisor Howard with the motion?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Darren is the second. Any public comment? Seeing no public comment, then Kylie, would you, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously.
Next came the questions of what to do and who to appoint to lead a county sheriff's department that's in disarray. County Supervisor Valerie Starkey.
I think that we just, if it's acceptable with our current situation and according to the internal policy of the sheriff's department, it's the sheriff, the undersheriff, and then the lieutenant is their kind of chain of command. So it's my understanding that Lieutenant Schneck is the person that is the most senior. My proposal would be is that we give Mr. Scott, who's going to be our next sheriff. He was absolutely not, he's not opposed. He's qualified, but give him that until June kind of to, he was not expecting to, if he won, to take office until January. So just kind of give him till June right after the election, get him all of his paperwork in order that he needs to do. And then in the interim, keep Lieutenant Schneck as the first in command over there, if that is something that he is willing and able to do. That would be my suggestion, is that we wait until the election and the people are for sure deciding. And then we could perhaps, I don't know with county council, if we can swear him in early, or if then we do the appointment after that election results are done.
Del Norte County Council, Joel Campbell Blair.
So the government code basically says that, like you said, the most senior person takes over. And then there's an attorney general opinion that says the board has to appoint somebody, to fill the term within a reasonable time. And I think that June is a reasonable time. There's no case law reason not to think that. So I think appointing, the person who wins the election, Mr. Scott, in June sounds like a perfectly acceptable legal strategy.
If that is the way that it goes, what discussion, and that could just be with administration as to compensation and how that's going to work. Because sometimes when you get, in a higher level, that screws up this and retirement and all these different things. So I don't know if that can be open-ended, but I certainly wouldn't want Lieutenant Schneck to not be properly compensated. So those are my comments.
Lieutenant Daniel Schneck of the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office agreed to take on the position of leading the department for the next 3 months. Schneck is currently the department's highest-ranking officer, and it's clear after hearing his and other comments that the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office is fragile and in disarray.
I am willing to take that role for a temporary time. My duty is to the citizens of Del Norte County and to that department, and also the board, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep the department running, and then also make for a smooth transition for when Garrett comes into office. We have staffing crises over there right now, but also internally the department's pretty fragile, and I've reached out to some of our retirees, and they are willing to come back and help out in a limited capacity, but taking on the responsibility that I'd be taking on, they're not interested in. But they are willing to help out in other ways, which is needed.
County Supervisor Darren Short took issue with comments made earlier in the meeting by Linda Sutter, one of the leaders of the effort to overturn Measure R. Sutter claimed that Lieutenant Daniel Schneck was making over $200,000 a year, and that this was proof that the Measure R sales tax wasn't needed in order to support law enforcement in Del Norte County.
Kind of on another note, I was just thinking, how dare you work at the sheriff's department when there is nobody else to work and in service to the people of this county. Your name has been thrown out there a few times, kind of demonizing you for doing the work that you do, and I want to apologize for that on behalf of the people who are doing it. But I want to thank you for working in the capacity that you are. We as public employees, we realize that people are going to know, what our salaries are. It's a little disheartening. It sometimes, but for somebody to say, Lieutenant Schneck made this amount of money. Oh, and it might have included some overtime in there. It's completely disingenuous. And it's it really does do them a disservice, and they're trying to paint you in a light that isn't factual.
Right.
And anyway, I just wanted to thank you for working for the people of the county in the capacity that you do.
Supervisor Chris Howard used this opportunity to argue in favor of not repealing the Measure R sales tax.
Lieutenant, I just want you to know that this board has done everything we can really to ensure that there's success over the sheriff's office. And I want to speak a little to the challenges that you heard this morning with the attacks on us implementing the voters initiative, which was essentially a Measure R.
Yes.
That is no question under attack this year. And it seems odd given that, it seems very couched towards a tax issue, but there's some good taxes and there's some bad taxes. But this is one of those things that the voters really geared towards public safety. And more importantly, this came at a similar time in this country when our law enforcement was under attack. And I remember having the conversations here on this dais with the previous board that said we need to do everything we can to support our public safety personnel, everything. And fortunately for us, there was an initiative that went on the ballot that the voters approved, and we did exactly what we said we were going to do. Stop the revolving door at our sheriff's department. My biggest fear, Lieutenant, and you could maybe help reflect on some of these thoughts and confirm them or not, is that if in November, when the voters decide on Measure R, you mentioned morale today. I really want to hear from you what that means, because as the board has outlined in their agreement, if Measure R goes away, so does everything that we've put towards that public safety contracts with those officers. I want to hear from you, really. Do they know that? And what does that mean to them?
Yes, they do know that. And also there's 3 deputies right off the top of my head I can think of that will be seeking employment elsewhere. And unfortunately, they're not locals and they're transplants, but they've, dedicated themselves to work here and stay here. But that's a huge hit for them. And if that ends up getting repealed, then we'll lose them. If that happens, I'll have no choice, but we're gonna have to shut down shifts. We won't be able to have 24-hour coverage anymore. We're on the verge of that anyways. I'm trying everything I can do to keep the lights on, 24 hours a day, but realistically, that's something that is on the horizon.
While it's questionable whether law enforcement has ever really been under attack in Del Norte County, Lieutenant Schneck told supervisors that it's virtually impossible for the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office to compete with what other law enforcement agencies are offering potential employees.
That, the police department just got that $10,000 or recruitment incentive. I know I grew up in Reading, so my dad's retired from Reading Police Department, but Reading Police Department just got a $40,000 recruitment incentive. And how do we compete with that? I'm not saying that, do my guys deserve 40,000? Absolutely they do, but I know it's unrealistic. But we need to look at not only a recruitment incentive, but a retention incentive, because we've got some dedicated deputies there and correctional officers and dispatchers and everybody that have stuck it out through, thick and thicker, and I don't even know what we're in right now, but they're very dedicated to this community and to our department. And, we owe it to them to keep them here, and keep them from going elsewhere. Humboldt County, I think they're at $10,000, $15,000, no, $10,000 for correctional officers, $15,000, I believe, for deputies. And right after we negotiated for the pay increase with Measure R, Humboldt County gets like a 23% pay increase. And again, I know we're not Humboldt County, but between Brookings and Humboldt, they're bleeding us dry.
Supervisor Valerie Starkey stated that she thought Lieutenant Schneck might find himself having to deal with problems that really aren't in his area of expertise, and that he should reach out for help that was available through other county departments.
Please make sure you communicate with the board. You're getting kind of thrown into a lot of different levels that you probably weren't expecting. And I'll speak on behalf of Chief Raymond, but there's people out there that can help you with certain things, with budgets and different things. And our administrative office is great for that, but we're not going to know how to help you unless you let us know. I do see a collaboration that will exist, because I have faith in our probation department and our administration. So just please make sure you communicate those needs however you can to make sure that we're providing you that help.
As has been pointed out in 2 articles by the Sacramento Bee, as well as in reportage by KFUG Community News and the Wild Rivers Outpost, one of the major problems that the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office is facing is the extensive number of people who have left the department. Supervisor Howard expressed his concerns about this as well.
I guess my bigger concerns, and I'd love to hear from Lieutenant Schneck today on his feelings on this, but my bigger concerns is it seems like we're lacking a lot of capacity over at the Sheriff's Office right now in multiple areas. And I know Lieutenant Schneck's been there a long time, but I think it's reasonable also for this board to have some discussion. We've just had a slew of retirements of tenured employees over there. And I'd love to get Lieutenant Schneck's thoughts on this. If any of those folks, in his opinion, would be good to fill what is really deemed as administrative role. So that communication role between the county and the Sheriff's Department. If that's something, hopefully that doesn't, with these capacity issues, take Lieutenant Schneck away from his normal duties. And I guess that's my biggest fear, is if by some miracle, one of these individuals would be willing to even consider an offer from the board to come in for this 3-month period and help keep some stability at the Sheriff's Department. Not to say that Lieutenant Schneck can't do it, and I'm crossing my fingers he can, but it's going to be a lot of capacity needs over there for us to fill over the next couple months. And then even then, Garrett's going to come in over there and he's going to be faced with a learning curve, which if we surround him with a lot of love from this board, from our county counsel's office, from our CA's office, and whatever departments like maintenance that have access and constant dealings with them day in and day out, to give that Sheriff's Department as much success to succeed as possible.
It's important to point out that despite, or perhaps because of everything else that's happened regarding crises in the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office, that Local elected officials have yet to acknowledge or address any of the other alleged inappropriate behavior by sheriff's deputies and or alleged abuse of at least one inmate in the county jail. But if the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office needs to be rebuilt from the ground up, perhaps those types of issues will be addressed as well. For KFUG Community News, I'm Mike Thornton.